Ancient civilizations built libraries meant to last for thousands of years, but they used stone instead of paper. This is the geometry of memory, the secret system early engineers used to preserve essential knowledge. You will discover how to see the world's oldest monuments as complex data storage devices. We will uncover why certain stones align with distant stars and how a pyramid's proportions can contain advanced mathematics. What forgotten wisdom do you think is still locked within these silent stone structures? Our ancestors faced a silent, relentless enemy, the slow decay of memory itself. They watched as stories told by elders grew faint, as records painted on fragile surfaces crumbled to dust. A flood, a fire, a conflict could erase the accumulated wisdom of an entire people in a single generation. This was an existential crisis. The knowledge of when to plant crops, how to predict the seasons, or the techniques to build stable shelters was not just academic, it was the difference between life and death for a civilization. So they turned to the one medium they knew would endure, the very bones of the earth, stone. This was not a choice made for artistic grandeur alone. It was a desperate and brilliant act of defiance against time. They began to encode their most vital lessons not with ink, but with geometry, transforming entire landscapes into libraries built to last for millennia. The sheer scale of their ambition is what we are still grappling with today. Stone itself became their parchment, but geometry was the ink. They spoke a silent language built not from words but from shapes. A circle was not just a circle, it represented wholeness, the endless cycle of the seasons, the infinite nature of the cosmos. A square grounded their structures, a symbol of the stable, physical world. And a triangle pointing skyward became a bridge between the earth we walk on and the heavens above. These were the fundamental letters of a universal alphabet, one that could be understood across thousands of years and miles, long after spoken languages had faded into silence. The most profound messages were encoded in ratios and proportions. You can find the same elegant spiral of a nautilus shell in the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, a pattern mathematically described by the Fibonacci sequence. This very same sequence appears in the proportions of the Parthenon in Greece and the stepping of the Great Pyramid at Giza. It is as if different civilizations, with no possible contact, were all independently discovering the same underlying rules of a beautiful mathematical universe. They were recording this discovery in the most permanent way they knew, the golden ratio, a specific and seemingly magical proportion, was not just an aesthetic choice. It became a way to encode the fundamental relationships found in nature, from the branching of trees to the orbits of planets. By building these ratios into their monuments, the engineers were effectively storing a complex understanding of cosmic order. The language of sacred geometry was perfect for this task. Words on a papyrus scroll could burn. A spoken story could be forgotten or deliberately changed. But the angles of a stone corridor, the precise diameter of a circular chamber, these truths were locked in place with immense weight and permanence. Anyone from any culture who understood this geometric code could come along centuries later and read the same message. The real challenge then was not in the design but in the doing. How do you translate a perfect, abstract circle into a ring of multi-ton stones that will stand for millennia? This required a level of precision that still baffles modern engineers. This principle takes shape in the silent, looming presence of megalithic monuments. Think of Stonehenge not as a simple circle of stones, but as a colossal, three-dimensional hard drive. Each massive trilithon, those pairs of uprights capped by a lintel, was not placed at random. They were positioned with a precision that locked in celestial data. On the summer solstice, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, casting a long beam of light into the heart of the circle. This was a calendar in stone, a way to mark the longest day of the year with unerring accuracy, year after year, century after century. The entire structure becomes a physical algorithm for tracking time, an observatory built to last far beyond the lifespan of its creators. The same logic applies to the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its base is nearly a perfect square, its sides aligned with the cardinal directions with a margin of error that is almost unbelievably small. The angles of its ascending and descending passageways were not just architectural whims, they were deliberate sightlines to specific stars, like the pole star of that era, Alpha Draconis. These corridors acted as fixed telescopes, capturing a sliver of the night sky at a precise moment in Earth's long precession. The pyramid's very proportions are a data set. The ratio of its perimeter to its height is remarkably close to 2 pi, meaning the builders encoded a fundamental mathematical constant into the physical dimensions of the building itself. Why go to such incredible lengths? A clay tablet can be shattered, a papyrus scroll can rot, but a mountain of stone, carefully shaped and aligned, is a different kind of memory. It is a memory that can withstand floods, fires, and the rise and fall of empires. The scale was the solution to the problem of time. The information was not stored in one place, but in the relationships between the stones. The overall form of a pyramid points to the heavens, a general statement about celestial aspiration, but the specific angles of its internal passages, the precise length of its corridors, these details reveal a deeper, more technical understanding of astronomy and mathematics. To access this knowledge, you did not need to read a language, you needed to observe the world. You needed to watch where the shadow fell on the equinox, or which star gleamed at the end of a dark passage on the winter solstice. The monument itself performed the calculation, and any observer from any future era could witness the result. This was engineering for eternity, a successful strategy whose evidence still stands against the horizon today. The sheer ambition of the Great Pyramid becomes staggering when you realize its dimensions are a scaled-down model of the Northern Hemisphere. Its builders did not just carve symbols into stone, they carved the planet itself into stone. The pyramid's base perimeter, when measured in the ancient Egyptian unit known as the cubit, relates to the Earth's equatorial circumference with a precision that defies coincidence. Similarly, its height encodes a relationship to the Earth's polar radius. This means the entire structure functions as a permanent, physical record of our world's spherical form and size, a geodetic marker of immense sophistication. The knowledge was not written down, it was built in. This architectural marvel also functioned as a celestial clock. The narrow, descending passages, precisely angled, were not merely corridors for the dead. They were fixed telescopes aimed at specific pivotal stars. The southern shaft from the King's Chamber, for instance, targeted the star Al-Nitak in Orion's belt, a constellation deeply associated with the Egyptian god Osiris. When that star crossed the meridian, visible at the end of the shaft, it signaled a specific and important time in the annual cycle, likely related to the Nile's flooding. The pyramid did not just mark the seasons, it locked the rhythms of the cosmos into its very geometry. Inside, the mathematical encoding deepens. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to twice its height gives you a number remarkably close to pi, the fundamental constant defining the circle. The golden ratio, that recurring pattern of beauty and proportion in nature, is found in the relationships between the dimensions of the inner chambers and passages. These were not decorative choices, they were a way to preserve these complex mathematical truths in a form that could not be lost, a three-dimensional textbook written in granite and limestone. Even the construction itself followed this hidden logic. The choice of different stones for different parts of the structure, from the massive foundation blocks to the fine Tura limestone casing, was guided by principles that enhanced both durability and even acoustic resonance. Certain chambers may have been designed to amplify specific frequencies, turning the silent stone into a kind of instrument. The pyramid's designers possessed and embedded a unified understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and geophysics that would take modern science centuries to rediscover independently. This single, silent mountain is a masterclass in how to save knowledge for the ages. But this obsession with permanent memory was not unique to the Egyptians. It was a global phenomenon, with other cultures developing their own ingenious and sometimes more portable solutions. From the shadow of the pyramids, this same drive for permanent memory took a different form under the open sky. Scattered across the globe, from the green hills of Britain to the arid plains of southern Egypt, stand silent rings of stone. These circles were not temples in the traditional sense, but colossal celestial calendars engineered to last. The most famous, Stonehenge, is a masterpiece of this form. Its massive sarsen stones frame the rising sun on the summer solstice with breathtaking accuracy, a spectacle that still draws thousands each year. But that alignment was not for spectacle alone. It was a vital agricultural signal. Knowing the precise date of the solstice told a farming society when to plant and when to harvest, turning the uncertainty of the seasons into a predictable cycle. The survival of the community depended on this knowledge, and the stone circle guaranteed its delivery year after year, century after century. This was not an isolated invention. Far to the south, in the Egyptian desert, lies Nabta Playa, a stone circle that predates Stonehenge by thousands of years. Its smaller stones are arranged with clear astronomical intent, aligning with the summer solstice and the rising of key stars. The existence of these two sites, separated by vast distances and time, proves that encoding celestial knowledge in geometry was a widespread and brilliant human solution. The information was not merely drawn on the ground, it was built into the relationships between the stones. The specific number of stones in a circle often held meaning, sometimes corresponding to complex lunar cycles. The Metonic cycle, which tracks the repetition of the moon's phases against the solar year over a period of 19 years, appears to be encoded in the layouts of certain circles. Distances between stones could represent the orbital periods of planets, creating a permanent physical model of the heavens above. To use this calendar, you did not need to be literate. You simply needed to stand in the center and observe. An engineer would have designed a specific sightline from one stone to another, creating a visual gun sight that highlighted the exact spot on the horizon where a star would rise or the sun would set on a pivotal day. This transformed the circle into an interactive educational tool. An elder could bring a child to the center and say, "Watch for the sun to touch that stone. When it does, we begin the harvest." The knowledge was transferred seamlessly without a single written word, locked into a geometry that could not be erased. The geometric precision required to create these long-term alignments reveals an advanced understanding of mathematics and surveying. To ensure a sightline remained accurate over a distance of hundreds of feet, and that it would still function centuries later, required an incredible grasp of angles, measurement, and the stability of the Earth itself. These rings of stone were the ultimate open-air classrooms, demonstrating how engineering could make the complex rhythms of the cosmos accessible to every generation that followed. The stones themselves held no power, but the precise emptiness between them, the carefully framed windows to the sky, held all the wisdom. The silent language of geometry found its most elegant expressions in the proportions of sacred spaces. While stone circles captured celestial motion, architects across the ancient world were encoding something even more fundamental into their temples and pyramids, the immutable constants of mathematics itself. In Athens, the Parthenon stands as a textbook on the golden ratio, the relationship between the width and height of its facade, the spacing of its columns, even the smallest decorative elements, all conform to this specific and harmonious proportion. This was not merely an aesthetic pursuit. By building the ratio into the very bones of the structure, the Greek engineers were ensuring that this profound mathematical truth, observed in seashells and flower petals, would be preserved in a form that could outlast any parchment or papyrus. It became a permanent public reference, a built-in lesson for future generations. This practice was a global phenomenon. The architects of Hindu temples in India achieved a similar feat, masterfully incorporating the value of pi into the complex geometry of their towering shikaras. The circumference of a temple's base might relate to its height through pi, or the design of a circular mandala within the temple would embody the constant. They were locking the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter into stone, creating a durable record of advanced mathematical understanding. Each of these structures was a deliberate act of preservation. The Mayans built pyramids where the number of steps on a grand staircase corresponded to the days in a key astronomical cycle, like the Venusian year. The pyramid itself became a physical calculator, its form encoding a celestial calendar. Even the glittering interiors of Byzantine churches served this purpose. Their vast mosaics and centralized floor plans were not random decorations. They were intricate diagrams of a philosophical worldview, using triangles, circles, and squares to represent the relationship between heaven and earth, the divine and the mortal. The stunning consistency of these ideas, emerging independently across continents, points to a shared human recognition of universal mathematical truths. Early engineers understood that the most vital knowledge was not a list of facts, but an understanding of the underlying principles that govern our world. By embedding these constants into the most enduring creations of their cultures, they created a network of geometric memory, a distributed library of stone that has successfully transmitted its core lessons across thousands of years. The information was not stored in a single, vulnerable location, but replicated in sacred sites around the globe, ensuring its survival against the relentless decay of time. The same geometric fingerprints appear on monuments an entire world apart. How could the octagon, an eight-sided figure of perfect balance, hold such deep significance for the Romans, the ancient Chinese, and Native American cultures, all of whom saw it as a symbol of cosmic harmony? This is not mere coincidence. It is evidence of a silent conversation happening across continents, a global network of ideas built not on words but on shapes. Look at the specific angle of 52 degrees. This exact slope defines the sides of the Great Pyramid at Giza, and it reappears thousands of years later as the characteristic angle of Mesoamerican pyramids like the Temple of the Sun at Teotihuacan. This is too precise to be chance. Both cultures were likely encoding the same astronomical knowledge, perhaps the precession of the equinoxes or the path of the sun, into their most sacred structures. They were building the same answers to the universe's biggest questions, using the same geometric language. Another profound shared concept was the squaring of the circle, a complex geometric puzzle that seeks to create a circle and a square with the same area. This challenge appears in the sacred art of India, the philosophical texts of Greece, and the layouts of medieval European cathedrals. Solving it required a sophisticated understanding of pi and irrational numbers. The fact that separated civilizations were all grappling with this same intricate problem suggests they were tapping into a shared well of advanced mathematical understanding. But how did this knowledge travel? The slow, patient pathways of ancient trade routes like the Silk Road were not just for silk and spices, they were the information superhighways of their day. An architect traveling with a merchant caravan could carry a single, brilliant idea for a structural support or a celestial alignment from Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley. Migrating peoples carried their building traditions with them, which then blended with local knowledge upon arrival. Occasional, direct cultural contacts, though rare, could spark a rapid transfer of engineering principles. This was humanity's first World Wide Web, a slow but steady exchange of geometric truths that connected distant minds. The stunning consistency of these designs points to something even deeper than cultural exchange. It suggests that early engineers, by observing the same stars and the same natural patterns, were independently discovering the universal operating instructions of our reality. They were all reading from the same cosmic blueprint. This leads us to the final, and perhaps most profound, question encoded in this geometry. What were these universal principles they all seemed to uncover, and what can they teach us about the nature of reality itself? Beyond the silent geometry of sight and alignment, these ancient engineers mastered a hidden language of sound. The stones themselves could speak, or more accurately, they could remember and repeat. Recent explorations reveal that many of the world's oldest monuments were not just visual calendars but sophisticated acoustic devices, designed to manipulate sound in ways that preserved knowledge through vibration and resonance. At the Mayan site of Chichen Itza, a simple handclap at the base of the massive El Castillo pyramid creates a startling phenomenon. The sound waves travel up the steep staircase and return not as a simple echo, but as a perfect chirping cry, an uncanny imitation of the sacred Quetzal bird. This was not an accident. The engineers calculated the exact dimensions and angles of each step to transform a human-made noise into a specific, symbolic natural sound, embedding a piece of their spiritual world directly into the building's physical form. It was an auditory memory permanently stored in stone. Inside the Great Pyramid of Giza, the so-called King's Chamber possesses a unique acoustic signature. Its granite walls and sarcophagus resonate at a specific, low frequency, a hum that some researchers believe can alter brainwave patterns, potentially inducing states of deep meditation or heightened awareness. This chamber may have been far more than a tomb. It could have been an initiation room where priests used the structures built in resonance to facilitate profound psychological experiences, passing down esoteric knowledge not through words but through felt vibration. The knowledge of how sound affects human consciousness was encoded right into the choice of stone and the chamber's precise dimensions. This principle of resonance likely extended to the open air as well. The great stone circle of Stonehenge, with its massive, carefully spaced sarsens, may have acted as a colossal resonator. During ceremonies, the chanting of priests or the rhythmic beating of drums would have interacted with the circle, creating standing waves and acoustic hotspots where sound was amplified or distorted in specific, meaningful ways. The entire structure could have been tuned like a giant musical instrument, turning a ritual into a full-body, immersive experience that reinforced cultural memory in a way that mere speech never could. Even the Greeks, masters of oration, engineered their theaters with this sonic wisdom. The perfect semicircular seating of the theater at Epidaurus is not just for unobstructed views. Each row of seats acts as a filter for sound, dampening low-frequency crowd noise while perfectly reflecting the higher frequencies of an actor's voice, allowing it to carry clearly to every one of the 14,000 spectators without any electronic amplification. The mathematical principles of sound projection were literally carved into the hillside, preserving the power of the spoken word for millennia. This acoustic dimension reveals a truly multi-sensory approach to preserving wisdom. Early engineers clearly understood that sound patterns, governed by the same mathematical ratios as visual geometry, could encode and transmit information. They created environments where sight, sound, and even vibration worked in concert to create unforgettable, replicable experiences. The stones did not just point to the stars, they sang with them, creating a symphony of preserved knowledge that we are only just beginning to hear again. This mandala principle reveals a profound truth about human memory, that our minds are hardwired to hold onto images far longer than abstract lists of ideas. A mandala is more than a beautiful circle. It is a cosmic map compressed into a single, unforgettable image. Across Himalayan monasteries, Buddhist monks painstakingly create intricate sand mandalas, each colored grain placed according to ancient geometric rules. The final design is a breathtaking explosion of symmetry and color, depicting palaces, deities, and the entire structure of the universe. Yet after days or weeks of work, the mandala is ritually destroyed, the sand swept up and poured into a river. This act is not a dismissal of the knowledge, but its ultimate confirmation. The true memory device was not the finished sand painting, but the precise geometric process of its creation, a set of instructions permanently etched into the minds of the monks through repeated ritual practice. The knowledge survived not in the object, but in the action, a living geometry passed from teacher to student. This same principle appears in the vast, open landscapes of North America. Native American medicine wheels, constructed from stones arranged in a central cairn with radiating spokes, are the mandala's earthly cousins. These stone circles were not just spiritual symbols, they were functional tools. The alignment of certain spokes with the rising sun at the solstices turned the wheel into a solar calendar, while other stones could mark significant historical events or sacred directions. The entire arrangement was a mnemonic map of both the cosmos and the tribe's own story, a durable record built from the simplest of materials. The symmetry and proportion in these designs are not arbitrary. They follow the same golden ratio and geometric constants that the pyramid builders used. The human brain finds these patterns inherently pleasing and, more importantly, easy to recall. An engineer designing a memory system would instinctively use this to their advantage. A complex philosophical system about the layers of consciousness or the path to enlightenment could be encoded in the concentric circles and gates of a mandala. A student could meditate on the image, moving their focus from the outer rings to the sacred center, internalizing the entire teaching through the visual roadmap. This was the genius of the mandala. It turned abstract spiritual journeys into a tangible geometric path. The natural evolution was to step inside the diagram. The transition from two-dimensional mandalas to three-dimensional architecture is a direct line. A Hindu temple is quite literally a mandala made manifest in stone. Its floor plan a precise geometric grid that maps the cosmos, with the towering Shikara spire representing the sacred mountain at the center of the universe. Worshippers do not merely look at the map, they walk through it, physically tracing the spiritual journey from the mundane outer world toward the divine center. The geometry moves from a visual aid to an immersive, experiential reality. This demonstrates the ultimate refinement of geometric memory. The knowledge is no longer just seen or remembered. It is lived and felt, ensuring its transmission becomes part of the very rhythm of life. The desert floor itself became a permanent library. In the arid plains of Peru, the Nazca lines transformed the landscape into a colossal scroll of geometric memory. These are not small carvings, but immense geoglyphs, with straight lines running for miles and perfect triangles visible only from high above. They were not meant for daily viewing, but for the gaze of gods or ancestors, a permanent record etched into the earth itself. The lines functioned as a massive memory map, encoding vital information. Certain lines align precisely with the sun on the solstices, turning the entire desert into a celestial calendar. Others point directly to underground water sources, a priceless piece of survival data preserved for future generations in the language of direction and shape. The pathways themselves may have been used for ritual walks, where the act of moving along the giant forms helped to physically imprint cultural stories and astronomical knowledge into the participants themselves. This was engineering on a breathtaking scale, a communal project that required generations of coordinated effort to maintain. The same impulse to write on the land appears in the misty fields of Carnac, France. Here, over 3,000 standing stones were arranged in converging lines and geometric patterns that stretch for miles. Walking among them is like moving through a vast, open-air data grid. The alignments are not random. They chart the movements of the moon and sun with a precision that rivals any modern observatory. Each stone is a data point in a massive calculation, its position locking in a celestial relationship that would remain accurate for centuries. This was not art for art's sake. It was a durable public record of cosmic order. Across the ocean, Native American cultures employed a similar principle with the Earth itself. They constructed giant effigy mounds, carefully sculpting the soil into the forms of birds, bears, and serpents that can only be fully comprehended from the sky. These were not just territorial markers, they were cosmological maps. The Great Serpent Mound in Ohio, with its undulating coils, aligns with the summer solstice sunset, its head pointing to the constellation Draco. The entire structure is a story, a myth, and an astronomical textbook rolled into one silent, earthen form. The creation of these landscapes required a sophisticated understanding of surveying over vast distances. Early engineers used natural features, like a distant mountain peak or the bend in a river, as fixed reference points to ensure their giant designs remained true. This practice of aligning human-made geometry with the permanent features of the natural world created a memory system that was literally rooted to the place, impossible to move or destroy. The knowledge became part of the land itself, ensuring that as long as the hills remained, the message would endure. This monumental approach to memory, where entire horizons become pages in a book, naturally evolved into the design of something even more complex: the first cities. The sprawling geometry of memory found its ultimate expression in the design of entire cities. These were not just collections of buildings, but living, breathing knowledge systems, where every street and plaza taught a lesson to those who walked them. In the ancient Indus Valley, the metropolis of Mohenjo-Daro was a masterpiece of encoded urban design. Its streets were laid out in a precise grid, a geometric pattern of order and predictability that directed traffic and water flow with astonishing efficiency. The entire city was elevated on a massive mud brick platform, a brilliant defense against seasonal floods, while a complex, city-wide drainage system with covered channels preserved public health principles for thousands of years. The geometric plan itself was the instruction manual, a permanent record of how to build a civilization that could thrive. Far to the west, Roman engineers employed a similar but distinct geometric logic. They stamped their cities across Europe and beyond using the rigid template of the Cardo and Decumanus. These two main streets, crossing at right angles in the city center, were far more than traffic arteries. The Cardo was typically aligned north-south, and the Decumanus east-west, orienting the entire urban fabric to the cosmos. This simple, powerful grid did not just organize space, it encoded a worldview, placing the city in a sacred relationship with the cardinal directions while creating an incredibly efficient and replicable model for administration, commerce, and defense. The act of navigating the city reinforced this cosmic order daily. In China, this urban geometry became even more philosophically dense. The layout of ancient capitals like Chang'an was a physical manifestation of Feng Shui principles. The city was a carefully oriented square, with gates and major structures positioned to harmonize with geographical features like mountains and rivers, while also aligning with astrological forces. The imperial palace, placed at the north in a position of supreme protection, mirrored the pole star's fixed place in the heavens. The city's geometry was a three-dimensional diagram of the Chinese cosmos, teaching every citizen their place within a vast, interconnected universe of earth, sky, and human society. Perhaps the most symbolic of these geometric cities was the original round design of Baghdad. Founded in the 8th century, its perfect circular form, known as the Round City, was a direct representation of cosmological ideals. With its concentric rings of walls and 4 grand gates pointing to the cardinal directions, it was a mandala made real, a geometric model of the universe that also functioned as a phenomenally efficient hub for centralized administration. The survival of these urban patterns, their layouts persisting through centuries of rebuilding after wars and disasters, is the ultimate testament to their power. They were not fragile records, they were resilient systems of memory, where the simple act of walking to the market or gathering in the central forum continuously refreshed the core knowledge of a culture. This grand, city-scale memory system naturally found a parallel in the most intimate of human tools, the objects held in one's own hands. While cities mapped the cosmos in stone, the same geometric principles shrank to fit into a traveler's pack. The drive to preserve knowledge was not limited to the monumental, it also became intensely personal. Engineers and scholars created portable memory devices, objects of stunning precision that carried the world's secrets in the palm of your hand. The most widespread of these were the humble clay tablets of Mesopotamia. Scribes did not just record laws and legends, they meticulously inscribed complex geometric problems and their solutions. A single tablet could contain the step-by-step instructions for calculating the area of a field or the volume of a grain silo, fired into permanence to serve as a durable, mass-produced textbook for generations of surveyors and builders. This was practical knowledge made indestructible, a lesson in geometry that could survive a flood or a sacking of the city. Across the Mediterranean, Greek and Roman engineers perfected a different kind of portable tool, the architectural instrument. A simple groma used for surveying straight lines and right angles was more than a tool, it was a physical embodiment of the square and the cross. Its design preserved the fundamental principle of perpendicularity, a concept vital for building everything from aqueducts to city grids. To hold and use a groma was to internalize the geometry of order itself, ensuring that the core principles of engineering could be carried to the farthest reaches of an empire and applied with perfect consistency. The ultimate expression of this portable genius was the Islamic astrolabe. This intricate device, often crafted from brass, was a handheld model of the universe. Its complex web of lines, circles, and curves, known as a retere, was a precise star map. By rotating this component over a plate engraved with coordinates for a specific latitude, a user could solve problems of time, prayer schedules, and celestial navigation. The entire device was a compact library of astronomical data and spherical geometry, its beautiful brass patterns encoding knowledge that would otherwise fill volumes. The same geometric language flourished in more personal artifacts. Celtic and Scandinavian artisans mastered the art of knotwork, weaving endless, interlacing patterns into jewelry, weapon hilts, and stone crosses. These were not merely decorative. A single, unbroken line weaving through a complex knot could represent the endless cycle of life, death, and rebirth, or the interconnected paths of the stars. The patterns often followed mathematical sequences, their symmetry a hidden code representing cosmic order and balance. Wearing such an artifact was a way to carry a map of the universe close to your heart, a constant, personal reminder of the hidden geometry binding all things together. The brilliance of these portable devices was their distributed nature. A pyramid could be quarried for its stone, a city could fall into ruin, but 1,000 astrolabes or a crate of clay tablets could be scattered to the winds, each one a complete and self-contained vessel of essential knowledge. They formed a resilient network of memory, ensuring that even if the great centers of learning crumbled, the core geometric truths they discovered would find a way to survive in a scholar's bag, a merchant's chest, or a warrior's prized possession. This distributed system of stone, city, and artifact was remarkably robust, but it relied on one final, fragile link, the human mind itself. Yet the most fragile medium of all, parchment, became a fortress for geometry. Inside the silent scriptoriums of medieval monasteries, scribes performed a daily act of defiance against decay. They bent over sheets of vellum, their quills tracing the perfect lines of triangles and circles that had survived from antiquity. These were not mere copies, they were acts of resurrection. A single geometric diagram from Euclid's Elements, meticulously redrawn, could preserve a complex proof for another 1,000 years. The parchment itself might be fragile, but the multiplication of copies across countless monasteries created a distributed library far more resilient than any single stone monument. If a fire consumed one library, the same geometric truths existed in a dozen others, patiently waiting in the dark. This monastic network became a living, breathing backup system for the memory of the ancient world. Islamic scholars elevated this practice to a high art. Their manuscripts on astronomy and mathematics were not just written, they were illuminated with breathtaking geometric illustrations. Complex star charts were woven into interlacing patterns, and architectural plans for arches and domes were rendered with a draftsman's precision. These pages were beautiful because the knowledge they contained was beautiful, a visual celebration of the mathematical order underlying creation. The diagrams themselves were the core of the teaching, often making the accompanying text a secondary explanation. In the West, masterpieces like the Book of Kells and the Lindisfarne Gospels hide a different kind of geometric code. Their famous carpet pages, often mistaken for pure decoration, are dense with mathematical intent. The intricate knots and spirals are based on precise compass work and grid systems, their repeating patterns encoding symbolic meanings related to infinity, unity, and the divine order. To create such a page, the scribe had to be both an artist and an engineer, using geometric tools to construct a visual theology. The very process of creating these manuscripts reinforced the memory. A monk would not simply draw a circle, he would construct it using the timeless method of a compass, physically reenacting the foundational act of geometry with each new copy. Marginalia, those notes scribbled in the edges of the page, tell a story of an ongoing conversation across time. A monk might add a new insight, an alternative solution, or a question next to a 1,000-year-old diagram, creating a palimpsest of thought where generations of minds collaborated on the same geometric puzzle. This combination of unshakable visual proof and evolving textual commentary created an incredibly powerful memory aid. A student could see the perfect, immutable circle on the page and read the accumulated wisdom of centuries explaining its properties and applications. The manuscript tradition represents the ultimate refinement of the geometric memory system. It took the principles locked in stone and made them portable, replicable, and endlessly debatable. It was a bridge built of ink and dedication, connecting the monumental wisdom of the pyramids to the personal curiosity of a single scholar studying by candlelight, ensuring that the flame of knowledge would never truly be extinguished. The stones could only hold the memory for so long. The true key to preservation was not just to build the knowledge into the world, but to build it into the people themselves. This is the seventh principle, the use of ritual and ceremony as a living, breathing form of geometric memory. Ancient cultures understood that the most resilient knowledge is not just seen or heard, but physically performed. A Native American rain dance was far more than a plea for water. The dancers moved in a strict geometric formation, their footsteps tracing circles and spirals on the earth that mirrored the patterns of whirlwinds and the cyclical nature of weather systems. This was not random movement. It was a physical embodiment of cosmic relationships, a way for the entire community to internalize the structure of the world through the rhythm of their own bodies. The dance was a lesson in meteorology and cosmology, performed until it became as instinctual as breathing. In Hindu temple architecture, this principle is carved into the very stone. Devotees do not simply enter the temple and pray. They perform a ritual known as pradakshina, a slow, mindful circumambulation around the central shrine. The path they walk is a precise geometric circuit, often a square or a circle, that symbolizes the spiritual journey from the outer world of illusion toward the inner core of divine truth. With each step, the participant is not just reading a map of the cosmos, they are walking it, their movement reinforcing the sacred geometry of the universe in their muscles and bones. The architecture demands the ritual, and the ritual, in turn, gives life to the architecture. This same fusion of movement and meaning appears in the stone floors of great medieval cathedrals. The Shotter's Labyrinth is a masterpiece of this form. It is not a maze with dead ends, but a single, winding path that leads inexorably to the center. Pilgrims would walk this geometric pattern on their knees as a form of physical meditation. The twisting, turning path represented the long and difficult journey of human life, with its trials and tribulations, ultimately leading to a spiritual destination. The act of walking the labyrinth transformed an abstract spiritual concept into a tangible, physical experience, locking the lesson into the walker's memory through sheer physical effort and spatial awareness. The engineers who designed these sacred spaces were not just architects, they were choreographers of memory. They laid out the stones to guide the feet, creating stages for ceremonies where every turn and every pause was imbued with geometric significance. The repetition of these ceremonies across countless generations was the ultimate backup system, even if the original philosophical meaning of a ritual grew faint over the centuries. The geometric pattern of the movement itself would endure. A child watching their elders dance in a circle for the harvest would learn the pattern, and in learning the pattern, they would unconsciously preserve the encoded knowledge of the solar cycle. This embodied approach reveals a profound insight into human cognition. We remember what we do far more vividly than what we are simply told. By integrating geometry with the daily and seasonal rhythms of life, these cultures created memory systems of incredible resilience. The knowledge lived not in a library that could burn, but in the sway of a dancer's body, the measured step of a pilgrim, and the collective memory of a community moving in harmony with the shapes of the cosmos. The same mathematical ratios that defined perfect circles and pyramids also created perfect harmony. A plucked string produces a specific note. If you divide that string in half, creating a 2-to-1 ratio, the new note is an octave higher, the most fundamental and pleasing interval in all of music. A 3-to-2 ratio gives you a perfect fifth, and a 4-to-3 ratio a perfect fourth. The ancient Greeks, particularly the followers of Pythagoras, made a stunning discovery. The very same numbers that described the harmonious sounds of a lyre also governed the harmonious proportions of a temple. Music was not an art separate from geometry. It was geometry you could hear. This meant that a musical scale was not just a collection of notes, it was a precise mathematical data set, an audible representation of cosmic order. Early engineers understood this profound connection and built it directly into their instruments. The careful placement of frets on a lute or the exact length of a pipe in a pan flute were not guesses, they were physical calculations. Each instrument became a portable repository of acoustic knowledge, a device that could only produce tones that adhered to the sacred ratios. To build a perfectly tuned harp was to build a machine that faithfully reproduced the mathematical laws of the universe every time its strings were struck. This was a living, resonant form of memory. You did not need to read a scroll about the ratio of 3:2. You could simply hear it, feel its resonance in your chest, and understand its truth on a primal level. This sonic wisdom then scaled up from handheld instruments to monumental architecture. Certain ancient chambers and temples were designed with dimensions that corresponded to these harmonic ratios. A room whose length and width were in a 3:2 ratio might naturally amplify sounds at the frequency of a perfect fifth, creating a space that was literally tuned like a giant instrument. Gregorian chant, developed for the vast stone interiors of medieval cathedrals, relied heavily on these pure, simple intervals like the fourth and the fifth. The chanting monks were not just singing words, they were activating the built-in acoustic geometry of the space, their voices merging with the stone's resonance to create an overwhelming sensory experience that embodied celestial harmony. This tradition of encoding mathematics into melody is a global phenomenon. In India, the classical raga system is a masterpiece of acoustic preservation. Each raga is not just a tune, but a precise set of mathematical relationships between notes, a framework so specific that it is associated with particular times of day or seasons. For centuries, this complex knowledge was passed down orally from master to student, a living, breathing library of sound that maintained its geometric integrity through rigorous, disciplined repetition. The survival of these unbroken musical lineages is a testament to the power of the human voice and ear as a viable, long-term memory technology. The connection is inescapable. The same numbers that please the eye in the Parthenon's facade please the ear in a Bach fugue. Early engineers saw no boundary between the geometry of space and the geometry of sound because they recognized a single, unifying principle governing both. They built systems where sight and sound worked in concert, creating a multidimensional memory so rich and immersive that it could withstand the collapse of empires and the silence of forgotten languages. The stones could point to the stars, but it was the resonant hum within them that truly seemed to bring the cosmos to life. The silent language of geometry would be meaningless if the stones themselves crumbled to dust. This is where the ancient engineers revealed their most practical genius, in the meticulous selection of materials and the revolutionary methods of construction designed for millennial preservation. They were not just architects of form, but masters of endurance, making choices that would defy time itself. Egyptian builders demonstrated this with breathtaking precision. They chose granite for the interior chambers of the Great Pyramid, a stone of immense density and hardness, knowing it would resist wear for eons. For the outer casing, they quarried fine Tura limestone, a stone that could be polished to a brilliant, reflective white, its tight grain offering powerful resistance to wind and rain. The choice was not random. It was a calculated decision based on a deep understanding of geology and weathering. Granite symbolized permanence and the unyielding nature of the afterlife, while the gleaming limestone connected the structure to the sun god Ra, reinforcing the very knowledge encoded within. The Romans perfected a different kind of alchemy. Their concrete was a technological marvel, a recipe that has proven more durable than many modern equivalents. By mixing lime and volcanic ash with rubble, they created a material that not only hardened but actually grew stronger over centuries, especially when exposed to seawater. The chemical reaction of the seawater with the ash created new crystals that filled in cracks, making structures like the Pantheon and Roman harbors resilient against the very elements that should destroy them. This was engineering for the long term, a material science so advanced that we are still unraveling its secrets today. On the other side of the world, Inca stonemasons achieved a similar feat of durability through a completely different method. Their structures used no mortar at all. Instead, they shaped massive blocks of granite and andesite with such incredible precision that each stone locked perfectly with its neighbors. The joints were so tight that not even a razor blade could slip between them. This interlocking puzzle was not just for show, it was a brilliant seismic innovation. When an earthquake struck, the stones would shift and settle without collapsing, the friction and complex geometry allowing the entire wall to dance and then reset. The precise geometric relationships between the stones, the angles and alignments that stored their knowledge, remained intact through the most violent tremors. The builders' understanding extended to the very grain of the stone. They oriented blocks so that their natural bedding planes were positioned to shed water, preventing frost from splitting them apart over thousands of winters. The cutting and polishing techniques they developed created seamless joints that eliminated points of weakness where water could infiltrate, freeze, and expand. Every step from quarrying to final placement was a deliberate act of preservation. The materials themselves often carried symbolic weight that reinforced the message. Using a specific type of stone from a sacred mountain did more than just provide a durable block. It physically connected the structure to a mythological landscape, embedding a layer of cultural memory right into the building's substance. The sheer success of these choices is written across the globe, in pyramids that still cast precise shadows, in Roman piers still standing in breaking waves, and in Inca walls that have outlasted the empires that built them. They understood that to preserve a message for millennia, you first have to build a vessel that can survive the journey. The sky itself was their ultimate reference library, a grand celestial clock whose movements they etched into stone. Ancient engineers recognized that while human empires rose and fell, the cycles of the heavens remained perfectly reliable, the one calendar that would never fail. This is why nearly every enduring monument also functioned as a permanent observatory. The most ambitious of these encoded cycles was the precession of the equinoxes, a slow wobble in Earth's axis that takes 26,000 years to complete. Evidence suggests that the shifting positions of the solstice sun over millennia were tracked and recorded in the precise alignments of structures like the Great Sphinx, which may have been aligned with the constellation Leo not in the time of the pharaohs but thousands of years earlier. This was memory on a cosmic scale, preserving knowledge of a cycle so vast it transcends all of recorded history. They also mastered the rhythmic dance of eclipses. The Saros cycle, an 18-year pattern that predicts when the sun, moon, and earth will align to create solar and lunar eclipses, appears to be embedded in the geometry of sites like Stonehenge. The arrangement of the 56 Aubrey holes that circle the monument corresponds to this cycle, allowing priests to anticipate these dramatic celestial events. A society that could predict an eclipse held immense power, not just over nature but over the human heart, demonstrating a command of the cosmos that was both practical and profound. The fear and wonder of a disappearing sun could be transformed into a scheduled, understood phenomenon, all through the silent calculation of stones. Beyond these grand cycles, the daily and seasonal motions of specific stars provided the granular detail for their calendars. The heliacal rising of Sirius, when the star first becomes visible just before dawn after a period of absence, was a pivotal event in ancient Egypt. It signaled the imminent flooding of the Nile, the lifeblood of the civilization. Temples were oriented with such precision that on that one morning, the light of the rising star would travel down a long, dark corridor to illuminate the statue of a god within the inner sanctuary. This was a celestial trigger, an automated announcement system built from aligned stone, ensuring the entire society received the vital message at exactly the right moment. Even the wandering paths of the planets were locked into this geometric memory. The complex retrograde motions of Mars and Venus, where they appear to loop backwards in the night sky, were tracked through carefully placed architectural sightlines. A window in a temple wall might frame the planet Venus only at the extreme points of its orbit, its light hitting a specific marker on the floor to indicate the start of a new ritual period. The entire zodiac was not just a myth, but a mapped territory whose borders were defined by the fixed geometry of pillars and corridors. The building itself performed the calculation, its stone framework serving as a permanent, unerring computer for celestial mechanics. The true genius of this system was its unified nature. It connected the microcosm of a single temple chamber with the macrocosm of the entire solar system. The same angles that defined the slope of a pyramid also pointed to a star, and the same ratios that shaped a sacred circle also predicted an eclipse. This created a cosmic memory where earthly geometry and celestial motion were two expressions of the same underlying order. The precision required for this work reveals an astonishing depth of observation. To detect the slow precession of the equinoxes requires meticulous record-keeping over centuries, a feat of patience and dedication that we can scarcely comprehend today. They were not primitive stargazers, they were data scientists working in stone, building an eternal archive under the one roof that would never collapse, the vault of the night sky itself. These ancient geometric systems worked so well because they spoke directly to the human mind. Early engineers were masters of psychology long before the word existed, designing memory devices that aligned perfectly with how our brains are wired to learn and remember. Modern neuroscience confirms what these builders understood intuitively, that our minds are pattern recognition engines. We do not easily recall random lists of facts, but we excel at remembering shapes, sequences, and symmetries. A perfectly symmetrical mandala or a repeating geometric motif creates a sense of cognitive ease, a feeling of rightness that makes the information it represents far stickier and more memorable than any paragraph of text. This is why a complex philosophical system could be encoded in the concentric circles of a meditation diagram. The brain latches onto the clear, logical structure, using the visual pattern as a scaffold upon which to hang layers of abstract meaning. The information becomes organized, not random, and therefore profoundly easier to recall. This cognitive principle extends to how these patterns use progression and scale. A small, central circle in a mandala might represent the individual soul. The next larger ring could symbolize the community, and the vast outer ring the entire cosmos. This hierarchical arrangement mirrors exactly how human memory naturally organizes information, from specific details to broad categories. An engineer designing a temple would use the same logic, creating a journey from a large, public courtyard to a smaller, more intimate hall, and finally to a tiny, sacred inner chamber. The physical progression through spaces of decreasing scale reinforces a spiritual lesson about moving from the outer world to the inner self. The architecture itself guides the mind through a pre-organized hierarchy of ideas, making complex concepts feel intuitive and unforgettable. The real power, however, was unlocked through ritual repetition. When a community performs the same geometric dance for the harvest year after year, or when a monk traces the same sacred diagram every day, they are doing more than preserving a tradition. They are performing a kind of cognitive maintenance. Each repetition strengthens the neural pathways associated with that pattern and its meaning, carving the knowledge deeper into the brain's physical structure. This transforms the information from something you know to something you are, a visceral understanding that resides in the body as much as the mind. The knowledge becomes automatic, resilient, and easily passed to the next generation simply through the act of doing. These geometric systems were so effective because they were multi-sensory. They were not just visual. A pilgrim walking a labyrinth engages their spatial memory through movement. A chanter in a resonant chamber feels the sound vibrations in their bones, engaging kinesthetic memory. A reader tracing a geometric proof in a manuscript uses fine motor skills. By designing systems that engaged sight, sound, and motion simultaneously, early engineers created redundant memory pathways. If one sensory channel faded, another could keep the knowledge alive. This multi-layered approach made the memory far more robust than any single medium, like writing, could ever be. The enduring success of these stone libraries and ritual practices proves their creators were not just builders, but profound students of human consciousness. They did not fight against the natural tendencies of the mind, they collaborated with them. They built external memory systems that functioned as seamless extensions of our internal cognitive hardware. This deep alignment with the fundamental mechanics of thought is why their messages have traveled so far across time, outlasting empires and languages. They crafted keys that fit perfectly into the locks of the human brain. The true cost of the Library of Alexandria's burning is not just a list of lost scrolls, but a stark demonstration of text's profound vulnerability. A single fire could erase the accumulated philosophy of an age, the fragile papyrus turning to ash in moments. Yet, while those flames consumed one form of memory, another form stood utterly unthreatened. The geometric memory encoded in the pyramids, the stone circles, and the temples did not burn. It preserved entire categories of knowledge that scrolls were fundamentally unsuited to carry. Practical engineering wisdom is the first great example. You cannot truly learn how to build a perfect arch from a written description alone. The precise balance of forces, the subtle interplay of weight and counter-thrust, is a physical truth that must be felt in the structure itself. The Roman aqueducts are a living textbook on this principle. The specific curve of their arches, the choice of stone, the way the mortar was mixed, this was not theoretical knowledge. It was built into the very fabric of the structure, a hands-on lesson that any later engineer could study, measure, and understand directly, long after the original builders and their manuals were gone. This preserved knowledge was not just about construction, but about the cosmos itself. A papyrus could record that a certain star rose on a certain date, but over centuries the ink could fade, a copyist could make an error, or the calendar itself could drift. The stone corridors of the Great Pyramid presented no such ambiguity. Their fixed angles captured a precise celestial alignment at a specific moment in Earth's history. They preserved a snapshot of the heavens with an accuracy no handwritten chronicle could ever guarantee, because the monument itself was the instrument of measurement. Even the most elegant mathematical truths were safer in stone. A theoretical text explaining pi or the golden ratio could be misunderstood, its diagrams poorly redrawn by a scribe who did not grasp the underlying concept. But when that same ratio is built into the proportions of the Parthenon, the truth is inescapable. Anyone with a measuring cord can come along and rediscover the constant for themselves. The building does not argue, it simply is. It presents the proof in a form that is both immutable and open to verification by any observer. This geometric system also preserved the intangible, the cultural values and worldview of a people. You can read a description of a society's belief in the connection between the earthly and the divine, but it remains an abstract idea. Walking the ritual path around a Hindu temple, moving from the noisy outer world through a series of increasingly sacred and geometrically precise spaces toward the silent inner shrine, communicates that same belief through a powerful experiential journey. The knowledge is felt in the body and understood in the soul, not just processed by the intellect. Finally, these stone libraries created a brilliantly redundant system. The same mathematical constant might appear in the slope of a pyramid, the layout of a city, and the design of a piece of jewelry. The same astronomical alignment could be found in a massive stone circle and a small handheld instrument. This meant that even if one monument was quarried for its stone, the knowledge it held was not lost forever. It was replicated and scaled across the entire culture, creating a resilient, distributed network of memory that proved far more durable than any collection of scrolls locked in a single, vulnerable room. The most profound monuments were never about a single idea. They functioned as unified systems where mathematics, music, astronomy, and spirit were woven into a single, indivisible design. This is the 10th principle, the integration of multiple knowledge systems into a single structure, creating a memory so resilient that if one thread of understanding was lost, the entire pattern could be rewoven from the remaining strands. Consider the soaring vaults of a Gothic cathedral. Its very skeleton is a lesson in sacred geometry, with ratios like the golden section governing the rise of its arches and the spacing of its columns. This mathematical framework was not separate from its spiritual purpose. It was its foundation. The same building was a precise astronomical instrument, with its main altar often oriented to catch the first light of the rising sun on the feast day of its patron saint, locking a celestial event into the liturgical calendar. Step inside and the acoustics come alive. The reverberation time within the nave was engineered to perfection, allowing Gregorian chant to hang in the air, its harmonies blending with the stone's own resonant frequency to create an overwhelming sensory experience of divine order. Every stained glass window, every sculpted saint, was part of this geometric and symbolic data set, a holistic encyclopedia in glass and stone. On the other side of the world, Hindu temple complexes achieved a similar synthesis. The temple itself is a three-dimensional mandala, its floor plan a precise geometric grid called the Vastu Purusha mandala that maps the cosmos. This architectural blueprint dictated everything from the proportions of the inner sanctum to the height of the towering gateway. But the knowledge did not stop at the walls. The rituals performed within, the specific clockwise path of circumambulation, activated the architecture. The musical scales used in worship, the ragas, were themselves mathematical constructions based on the same harmonic ratios found in the temple's dimensions. The structure, the sound, and the movement were all different expressions of the same cosmic mathematics, a unified theory built for permanence. In Mesoamerica, the pyramid was the ultimate integrated machine. The Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan is a scaled model of cosmic time. Its base perimeter relates to a solar calendar, while its layout within the city mirrors the arrangement of stars in a key constellation. Its staircases and platforms were stages for ceremonial dramas that reenacted creation myths, and its alignment captured the sun's rays on the equinoxes, painting a serpent of light down its side. It was an observatory, a temple, a calendar, and a cosmological map, all operating at once. You could not understand one function without appreciating the others. The engineers who conceived these structures understood a fundamental truth, that knowledge lives in the relationships between things, not in isolated facts. A single number like pi was not just a mathematical constant, it was the shape of a circle, the basis of a musical interval, and the rhythm of a planetary orbit. By building these interconnected relationships into their most enduring creations, they created a multidimensional memory. If future generations forgot the mathematical formula, they could rediscover it by measuring the building. If they lost the astronomical charts, they could reconstruct them by watching the play of light and shadow on the solstice. This holistic approach represents the highest achievement of geometric memory. It was a recognition that the universe is a single, intricate system, and the only way to preserve its secrets was to build a reflection of that unity here on Earth. For centuries, these silent monuments were dismissed as tombs for egotistical kings or temples for superstitious priests. Modern science, armed with powerful new tools, is finally proving otherwise. The geometric codes we have been exploring are not mere speculation, they are measurable, verifiable facts. LIDAR technology, which uses lasers to map the ground from the air, has peeled back the jungle canopy and desert sands to reveal a hidden world of geometry. In Cambodia, LIDAR scans showed that the entire city of Angkor Wat was laid out as a massive astronomical map, its streets and canals mirroring the stars of the Draco constellation. In the Amazon, previously unknown settlements were found arranged in perfect circles and squares, proving that geometric urban planning was a global phenomenon. These were not random villages, they were deliberate designs now visible for the first time in centuries, confirming that ancient engineers shaped entire landscapes into data structures. The stones are also speaking quite literally through the science of archaeoacoustics. Researchers with sensitive digital sound equipment have mapped the sonic properties of ancient chambers. In Malta's Hypogeum, a subterranean labyrinth carved from solid rock, they discovered that a specific niche resonates at a frequency of 110 Hz, a tone known to alter brain activity and induce states of focused calm. This was not a lucky accident, it was acoustic engineering, a deliberate use of geometry to create a space that could shift human consciousness. We can now simulate the ancient skies with planetarium software, and the results are stunning. When we digitally rewind the stars to the year the Great Pyramid was completed, the southern shaft from the King's Chamber points directly to the center of Orion's belt. This alignment was precise for only a narrow window of time, and the pyramid's geometry captured that exact celestial moment, locking it in place like a fossilized star observation. Even the materials tell a story of advanced knowledge. Electron microscopes have analyzed Roman concrete, revealing that the inclusion of specific volcanic ash created crystalline structures that actually heal cracks when exposed to seawater. This was a nanotechnology of its day, a recipe for eternity that we are only now beginning to replicate. Perhaps the most personal validation comes from cognitive science. Functional MRI scans show that when subjects view sacred geometric patterns like mandalas, the brain's default mode network, associated with mind-wandering and anxiety, becomes less active. The structured symmetry provides a cognitive anchor, exactly as the ancient engineers intended. They built external memory systems that are perfectly aligned with our internal neural wiring. This convergence of archaeology, physics, and psychology is transforming our understanding of the past. What we called myth is now measurable data. The ancient obsession with proportion was not mere decoration. It was a robust method for storing complex information across multiple, redundant channels. The implications are staggering, suggesting that these early engineers possessed a unified understanding of the world that we, with all our specialized sciences, are only just beginning to piece back together. Their silent libraries of stone are finally yielding their secrets, and the message is clear: we have underestimated our ancestors. Those colossal monuments were a promise carved in stone, a vow made to people the builders would never meet. The early engineers who laid the first stones of a pyramid knew they were starting a project that would take longer than their own lifetimes to complete. This was not an act of vanity, but a profound ethical commitment to the future. They were thinking in units of time we can barely comprehend, undertaking generational projects that required a society to work together with a shared vision stretching across centuries. The very act of beginning such a construction was a statement of faith, a belief that the knowledge they possessed was so vital it must survive them, no matter the cost. This created a silent cultural contract between the living, the dead, and the unborn, binding them all in a common purpose of preservation. The geometric codes they embedded were not just for their immediate descendants, but for any intelligent civilization that might follow, even if all spoken language between them was lost. The enduring form of a circle or a pyramid transcended culture, offering a universal key to unlock the stored information. This forward-thinking responsibility extended beyond pure knowledge to include warnings about the natural world. Many ancient systems encoded lessons on ecological balance. The precise solar alignments of stone circles were not just calendars, they were constant reminders of humanity's dependence on the sun and the seasons for survival. The sophisticated water management systems of Mohenjo-Daro, preserved in its city grid, taught the principles of sustainable living and flood control to all who would later study its ruins. These were not abstract lessons, they were essential instructions for maintaining a stable relationship with a fragile environment. The scale of this endeavor required immense social cooperation, reinforcing the core value that the community itself was a project meant to last for generations. This long-term perspective stands in stark contrast to our modern reality, where digital data can become unreadable in a mere decade and corporate servers are shut down, erasing vast archives of human knowledge. The ethical framework of the ancient builders challenges our own short-term thinking. They asked a fundamental question we have largely forgotten: what is our responsibility to those who will come 1,000 years from now? Their answer was to build libraries without walls, to write their most important lessons in the only language they knew would endure, the silent, patient grammar of geometry. This was not merely about storing data, it was about safeguarding the very foundations of civilization for a future they would never see, an act of hope etched permanently into the landscape. The same geometric principles that preserved knowledge in stone now power our digital world. A modern QR code is the direct descendant of a Celtic knot or a sand mandala, a dense geometric arrangement of black and white squares that stores a web address or a product number. Just as the precise angles between standing stones encoded celestial data, the specific pattern of a barcode translates into a string of numbers when scanned by a laser. Both systems use visual geometry as a robust, scannable language for storing and retrieving information without a single written word. This is not a vague similarity, it is a direct parallel in how we use shape to hold meaning. The medium has shifted from granite to gloss paper, but the underlying logic of geometric encoding remains powerfully the same. Even our most advanced storage solutions echo this ancient wisdom. Scientists are now developing crystal-based data storage, where information is written into the three-dimensional lattice of a synthetic quartz crystal using lasers. This is a geometric memory system in its purest form, with data points arranged in a precise, three-dimensional grid within the crystal's atomic structure, much like the carefully placed stones in a massive cairn. The crystal becomes a permanent, resilient library capable of surviving for millions of years, a direct digital heir to the pyramid's promise of eternity. The most profound parallel emerges in the realm of quantum computing. Here, the fundamental unit of information is the qubit, which can exist in multiple states at once. These states are not simply on or off. They exist in a complex geometric relationship to one another, represented as points on the surface of a theoretical sphere called the block sphere. The manipulation of these qubits relies on geometric transformations, rotating their state across this sphere to perform calculations. It is a new form of sacred geometry, where the relationships between abstract points in a mathematical space hold the key to unlocking immense computational power, mirroring how ancient engineers used celestial alignments to unlock predictions about the cosmos. Our digital world is also filled with fractal geometry, the same principle of self-similarity seen in a fern leaf or a mountain range. Fractal compression algorithms use this very idea to drastically reduce the size of image and video files. The algorithm identifies repeating geometric patterns at different scales within the picture and stores the instructions for recreating them, rather than storing every single pixel. This is a form of data preservation through geometric pattern recognition, a method that finds efficiency in the same natural order that ancient builders observed and encoded in their monuments. Perhaps the most striking modern echo is the blockchain. This technology creates a distributed, tamper-proof ledger of information that is maintained across a vast network of computers. There is no central authority, no single library that can be burned. This is a direct digital counterpart to the global network of geometric memory, where the same astronomical constant was encoded in a pyramid in Egypt, a stone circle in Britain, and a temple in India. The knowledge was distributed and redundant, ensuring its survival. A blockchain does the same, creating a resilient, collective memory that no single failure can destroy. Even the geometric basis of modern encryption, which uses immense prime numbers and complex mathematical curves to scramble data, mirrors the symbolic encoding of ancient systems. The precise ratio that unlocked a spiritual truth in a temple is akin to the private key that decrypts a secret message today. Both are geometric keys designed to protect valuable information from unauthorized access. These powerful parallels suggest that geometric organization is not a primitive technology, but a fundamental and timeless approach to structuring information. The ancient engineers working with stone and sky discovered a universal language for memory that our own technology is now rediscovering in silicon and light. Their silent stone libraries hold a surprising lesson for our digital future, reminding us that the most durable solutions are often written in the elegant, enduring language of shape and form. A hidden grammar of form connects every culture that ever raised a stone. The same elegant spiral unfurls in a seashell, dictates the growth of a sunflower, and governs the proportions of a Greek temple. This is no coincidence. It is evidence of a universal language, a deep structure of reality that early engineers learned to read and then to write in their most permanent works. They were not inventing arbitrary rules, they were recording the operating system of the cosmos itself. This universal grammar is built from a few fundamental principles. The golden ratio, that specific and harmonious proportion, appears again and again, from the chambered Nautilus to the layout of the Parthenon's facade. It is a mathematical constant that the human eye finds inherently beautiful, a bridge between the natural world and human perception. This ratio was not a cultural fashion. It was a discovered truth, and by building it into stone, engineers ensured its survival as a public reference for all future generations. The same simple operations of symmetry form the basis of this global language. The act of reflection creates a mirror image, a pattern of balance seen in the wings of a butterfly and repeated in the ornate carvings of Celtic crosses. Rotation generates the endless knots of Norse art and the radiating petals of a mandala. Translation, the simple repetition of a shape, builds the rhythmic columns of the Roman Colosseum and the intricate tile work of Islamic mosques. These are not just decorative choices, they are the basic verbs of this geometric grammar, actions that the human brain is wired to recognize and remember. This shared vocabulary extends to the very nature of harmony. Musical scales from different cultures, though they sound distinct, often rely on the same simple whole number ratios. The perfect fifth, a cornerstone of Western music, is built from a 3:2 ratio, the same proportion that creates visual harmony in the dimensions of a Hindu temple's inner sanctum. The builders understood that the same numbers that please the ear also please the eye because they reflect a single, underlying mathematical order governing both sound and space. Why would this universal grammar exist? The answer lies in our shared reality. All humans, regardless of culture, live under the same sky, observe the same cyclical growth of plants, and are built from the same biological blueprints. Early engineers, by observing nature with profound patience, were simply documenting the common patterns they found. They saw geometric progression in the branching of a tree and replicated it in the expanding tiers of a ziggurat. They recognized cyclic patterns in the moon's phases and encoded them in the 19-year metonic cycle of a stone circle. The geometric memory systems they created were so effective because they were not based on local customs or fleeting beliefs. They were anchored in the permanent, verifiable laws of mathematics and physics. This is why a pyramid in Egypt and a pyramid in Mexico can share the same precise slope. It is why a Buddhist monk and a Native American elder can both use a circle to represent the cosmos. They were all reading from the same cosmic blueprint. The universal grammar of form was their Rosetta Stone for eternity, a key that could unlock stored knowledge long after the builders' names and languages had turned to dust. The stones could speak to anyone who understood this fundamental language of shape, ratio, and symmetry. This profound insight raises a final, haunting question. If these geometric principles are so universal, so deeply written into the fabric of reality, what does that tell us about the nature of the universe itself and our place within it? This ancient drive to encode knowledge in geometry is not a relic of the past, it is a tool you can use today. The very principles that preserved wisdom for millennia can be harnessed to organize your own thoughts and master complex information in our overwhelming digital age. Think of your mind not as a blank slate, but as a landscape waiting for structure. A mind map is the perfect starting point. Instead of writing a linear list, you place a central idea in the middle of a page and let related concepts branch out like a tree, using curves, colors, and images. This spatial arrangement taps directly into your brain's natural strength for visual and spatial recall, transforming a jumble of facts into an organized, memorable pattern that you can literally see in your mind's eye. For even more powerful recall, you can build a memory palace. This ancient technique used by Greek orators asks you to construct a detailed imaginary building in your mind, a geometric space you know well, like your own home. You then place the items you need to remember at specific locations along a familiar path through this palace. To retrieve a complex speech or a grocery list, you simply take a mental walk, visually picking up each piece of information from where you left it. The geometry of the space itself provides the scaffolding for your memory. You can also develop your own personal symbolic language using basic shapes. Assign a core concept to a circle, a supporting argument to a square, and a challenging problem to a triangle. As you learn, you mentally file new information under these geometric symbols, creating a durable and intuitive mental filing system that is uniquely your own. This method aligns with the way our ancestors used universal shapes to represent complex ideas, making your internal knowledge as structured and resilient as a stone circle. The rhythm of learning matters just as much as the structure. Incorporating patterned repetition, like reviewing your mind maps or mentally walking your memory palace at scheduled intervals, works with your brain's natural forgetting curve. This rhythmic reinforcement carves the information deeper into your long-term memory, much like the repetitive ceremonies that etched cosmic knowledge into a community's collective mind. Do not underestimate the power of your own body. When you study, use physical gestures to represent different ideas. Trace a triangle in the air when you think about a three-part process, or walk to different corners of the room to represent different historical eras. This kinesthetic learning engages your spatial memory systems, the same ones our ancestors used when they performed ritual dances to remember the paths of the stars. Your movement makes the knowledge physical and far harder to forget. Finally, translate abstract data into visual diagrams. A complex business process becomes a clear flowchart. A historical timeline transforms into a rising and falling wave. A scientific theory appears as an interconnected web of circles and arrows. You are not just making a pretty picture, you are building a modern geoglyph, a personal Nazca line that makes invisible relationships concrete and instantly understandable. These personal applications prove that geometric memory is not obsolete. In an era of digital overload, these ancient techniques offer a surprisingly effective way to filter the noise and build a lasting architecture of knowledge within your own mind. By understanding how early engineers thought, you can learn to build stronger, more enduring memories for yourself. The geometry of memory stands as one of humanity's most profound and enduring intellectual triumphs. Across continents and centuries, early engineers crafted a multi-layered defense against forgetting, building networks of knowledge in stone, sound, and ritual. They did not merely record isolated facts, but embedded entire systems of understanding, from the mathematical relationships in a pyramid's slope to the astronomical patterns in a stone circle's alignment. This integrated approach, weaving together mathematics, astronomy, material science, and a deep intuition for human cognition, created a resilient web of memory. Information was not stored in one place, but was replicated across different scales and mediums, ensuring that if one monument fell, the core truths it held survived elsewhere. They preserved the very methods of thinking, the ways of seeing the world, ensuring that future generations could not just know the answers, but rediscover the questions. Today, as we grapple with digital decay and the overwhelming flood of transient information, these ancient strategies feel remarkably relevant. They remind us that the most durable solutions are often holistic, distributed, and built on universal principles. The silent language of circles, ratios, and symmetries still connects us directly to the minds of our ancestors, a bridge across time built from the most fundamental patterns of reality. The next time you see a photograph of an ancient monument or stand within a stone circle, try to see beyond the weathered rock. See it as its builders intended, a sophisticated library waiting to be read, a permanent address for wisdom in a changing world. I would love to hear which of these geometric memory systems resonates most with you. Does the celestial precision of stone circles capture your imagination, Or is it the acoustic genius of resonant chambers? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you have enjoyed this journey into the past, subscribe for more explorations of history's greatest mysteries.